Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Hello again, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley on another duly noted podcast, of course, presented by Titan MRI, as always, brought to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. How beautiful are our Gator Studios?
Everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you're a first timer listening to us, whether it's the radio or the podcast, please tell your family and friends. If you're listening to us on the internet or the podcasting sites, definitely share and follow this interview. We have a special guest on. He does do a radio show from 4 to 6 p.m. on WRUF. It's called The Tailgate. And he also has a podcast on YouTube. It's also another duly noted podcast. And you can follow him at Pat_Dooley on Twitter. This is Pat Dooley, former Gainesville Sun writer, and also, as we said, radio host and podcaster. So, Pat, thanks so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate you coming on today.
No problem, man. Enjoy. Hopefully we'll have a good conversation.
We got a lot of Gators stuff to talk about. It's been quite a year for the Gators, obviously, with the track and field taking home the national championships. Cross country really did extremely well with that. So ending the Gators athletic year with the championship, what would you grade Florida athletics in the 2021-22 season with?
Wow. I would probably give them a B. Mm-hmm. It was an exhausting season for Gator fans because, look, to me, the year starts in September and ends in June. July and August are just there. They're there to get your tan built up. But that's when, for somebody who's grown up around college sports my whole life, that's when my season goes. And when you think where we were on September 1st, had a really good football coach, had a really good basketball coach who'd been to the tournament every year. And I think Gator fans were expecting nothing but everything to keep rolling. And then football was exhausting and basketball was exhausting, and both those coaches are gone. You had the whole debacle with men's soccer or women's soccer, which was obviously you had to fire a coach there. You had the sport that did the best until track did was gymnastics, and they were one wobble away from winning the national championship, but it still felt like a disappointment. It was exhausting. Track did kind of wrap everything up with a nice bow and give them the 2 national championships. Mouse has, 12 now, I think it is. You can make the argument he's the best coach to ever coach at Florida, although I will say this, he gets 4 chances to win a national championship every year. Most coaches only get 1. But so, again, Florida did not win the All Sports Award in the SEC, and they haven't now, I think, in 4 years. One of them was because of COVID, didn't really count. And I used to keep track of that, so it matters to me. But so it wasn't a great year, but it was not, it wasn't a Missouri year. I mean, Missouri finished 14th in the All Sports Trophy, so that tells you what kind of year they had. So it was a good year, but it was not anywhere near a great year.
I do want to bring this up because you just touched on this in the last answer. Scott Strickland, obviously the athletic director. I think he's been there since the end of 2016. He came in November, I believe. Regardless of that, we are seeing throughout his tenure the second football coach hiring at Florida. Obviously, you talked about what happened with women's soccer with Tony Amato. Mike White is leaving, and also the Cam Neubauer situation that happened earlier on. So is Strickland on the hot seat in your mind because of all these issues that have went on throughout, his time at the University of Florida?
I don't know if you define it as a hot seat, but he knows that things have got to get better. And basically, he's kind of put all of his chips in the table with these 2 hires of, Napier and Golden. Because Napier, while Napier was a popular choice in terms of a lot of people wanted him to coach their football team, for Florida, it wasn't the home run hire. Now, I think it's showing up to be a home run hire so far when we see what he's been able to do with the, we've had at the quarterback club, which I always introduce the speaker there. We've had Katie Turner, we had Marcus Walker, Castro Walker the other day, and Coach Napier spoke. You just sit there and listen to them and go, man, these guys get it. They understand it. These guys aren't the kind of coach that would have his secretary, or not his secretary, but his assistant texting players, and then when they want to talk to them, they can't find them to talk to. So, but they're. I mean, again, they haven't. Jeremy wanted that all sports trophy every year. Maybe it's not important to Scott. I don't know, but I mean, I know all sports are important to him. But I've known Scott for a long, long time. We go back to the days when he was a SID at Baylor. And I know he's doing a lot of good things behind the scenes that people aren't aware of. Obviously, all the financial commitment that Florida's made. I think he gets it, and I think he understands it, but he's not going to put up with – he's not going to – I don't want to say suffer fools well, but he's not going to put up with a bunch of bull in your program. And he screwed it up at Cam Newbauer. There's no doubt about it. I think he would, if you get a couple beers in, would probably admit it. The Amato thing, he acted a lot quicker on. The Mike White thing, I don't think Mike White was that bad a coach, but they were going to have a conversation with him because they wanted to know where they were going since they didn't make the tournament. And, Mike just wanted out. It was a divorce, basically. Florida fans and Mike White got divorced. And then, with Mullen, I mean, it kind of surprised us. And I didn't have a problem with the firing when it happened. It felt like it needed to happen. That I said on the radio, I didn't think Dan Mullen was taking his job seriously enough, and I think that's what happened there. So anyway, you add all that stuff up together. So yeah, there's always heat on you when you're making over $1 million a year. That's right. That's a rule of thumb. And so it's definitely, there's some there, but I don't think it's like he's worried about his job kind of heat. I always talk about there's two kinds of heat. There's real heat and there's perceived heat. We may see it as heat, but nobody above him thinks he's in any trouble.
So you talked about, obviously, Billy Napier, the new Florida football coach. There are some new coaches, as we spoke about, with Todd Golden, men's basketball, and also Samantha Bone coaching at soccer. As far as, doing your show and knowing all these people, talking in the Gator Wire, as far as writing for them, I should say, what are you hearing from people around the Florida athletic community about these three new coaches? Because we look at Florida, obviously Spurrier is the top coach that ever coached at Florida, in my opinion, for football. And then we look at soccer. Becky Burley was there for over 30 some odd years. There's no contest that Florida soccer's Becky Burley. And obviously men's basketball going to Billy the Kid Donovan. So we're going to these three sports in Florida that always had really amazing coaches. What do you hear from these new guys that are coming in?
Yeah, well, I haven't talked to the new soccer coach yet, but look, soccer was starting a decline under Becky, and I think it was kind of a common, a parting of the ways as much as anything. I mean, she retired, but immediately she became a coach again, so that tells you a little bit something there. I just think that it got to a point where, hey, Becky, and I don't know this. This is conjecture on my part. Hey, Becky, we're going to have to make a move. It's not going really well. I think their last season was really bad. Yeah. Why don't you retire? If you retire, then it looks like you went out on top. That's a total guess on my part, but that sure felt that way. And again, we'll see what happens with the new coach. The other coach obviously didn't do well and did not relate very well to the players. With basketball, I've been nothing but impressed with Todd Golden so far. I will say this. It's kind of funny. We were talking about this the other night. My daughter ran into him at the social. And I said, well, that is one more time than I ever saw Mike White in public. Because, I mean, he just wasn't a social animal. He didn't He believed, he was about his players and his family and nothing else. He did media because he had to. His relationship with the media kind of got sour at the end. For some reason, he quit returning my texts, which I said, okay, fine, I can live with that. But it was just that he changed a lot, and I think Todd is going to come in and be a more personable guy, be out in public more, be out doing things that Mike didn't do. And I think that's part of being a coach, but it still comes down to winning. And with Napier, I mean, everything he's done seems like it's the right thing to do. And it's kind of, I hate to say this, it's kind of like when Urban came in here. Now, Urban, as we know, sitting here now, we're like, Urban was the coach here, but no, we don't like to talk about it, except when he won those championships. But Urban did a bunch of stuff, and we were like, why didn't anybody think of this before? For example, the Gator Walk, for singing the alma mater. There was a lot of traditions he started here that we were, and I think that's what Napier's doing. And with Napier, it's about the players, making the players. It's not just wanting to get them here; it's wanting to keep them here. Because with the transfer portal now, if players are not comfortable where they are, if they don't have the parking and the housing and the food that makes them happy, they're going to go somewhere where they do have the parking and the housing and the food and playing time as well. So you can't force players onto the field, but you can make them comfortable in their surroundings. So, I think I do think that kind of Gator fans in football are waiting to see what Napier is as a coach, because we still don't know what he's like as an SEC head football coach. Nobody knows. I make this joke with the quarterback club every time I speak to him. I go, he's still undefeated. He hasn't lost one game yet. He's going to lose one next year. Okay, there's going to be probably several. And I think that I may be wrong on this. I think there'll be some patience with Billy Napier that maybe more than most Gator fans like to show, because we know that the roster is not great next year. It's got some great players, but not overall great. And with basketball, I think same thing. They're going to give this new coach some time. He's put together a really good team from the transfer portal. They're really going to be pretty good, but you know what? Everybody in the SEC has gotten so good. So it's almost like you've got to position yourself with the coaching staff you have in every sport for when Oklahoma and Texas come in, because they're good in everything, except maybe football with Texas. But we're just seeing it right now where both teams are in the College World Series and both teams were in the Women's College World Series. And welcome on in. And Oklahoma's the team that beat Florida in the national championship in gymnastics. Oklahoma won the golf championship. It's just this is not going to be easy for these coaches. It just got a lot harder. So you kind of better have your ducks all in a row in 2025 when they come in.
Pat Dooley here on Fire Breathing Rob. Again, you can listen to Pat at the tailgate. It's Monday through Friday, 4 to 6, WRUF, and also another Dooley noted podcast on YouTube and Pat_Dooley on Twitter. Pat, as we keep going into this, I want to just keep going on Billy Napier. I know you kind of touched on in the last answer that you expect the Gators to have a few losses. What are going to be the bright spots for the Gators next year that you feel?
Well, here's the thing about next year. Well, first of all, I hope they're more disciplined, that they don't make stupid penalties the way they have the last 4 years, or 8 years, 10 years. There's a lot of things you want to see them get better at. And, Dan Mullen was he was brilliant. The word genius gets thrown around too much, but he was brilliant on offense. But it was kind of like Will Muschamp. Will Muschamp was a great defensive coach.
Right.
But he didn't get offense. With Napier, we still kind of have to see. But the bottom line is they've got some really good players. They just don't have enough of them, and they don't have enough depth. I mean, I think the offensive line could be a strength, but how many times have we gone into the season saying, man, I think Florida's offensive line, this is going to be they're going to be really good. I think we've been saying that for 10 years and it hadn't happened. They've been okay. They've been able to pass block but not run block, or run block and not pass block. So we'll see what it is there. The biggest problem they have is at wide receiver. They don't have a go-to guy. Maybe this kid they got from Arizona State will be that guy, Pearsall. But again, I watched some Arizona State games. I don't remember him. I mean, he had a lot of catches, but I don't really know much about him. And then, having Ventrell Miller back, hopefully he stays healthy. That's a huge factor. Running back room looks really good. I think Montrell Johnson will be the starter this year. So, but they just don't have enough depth. And that's what they're trying to manufacture, whether it's through getting these guys in better shape, which they're doing right now, or just getting more players in on the transfer portal. I think they still have room, even though I know they're over the scholarship limit. They're expecting some guys to transfer out, and then they'll have some room. But I don't know. I think they're going to be. I think it's going to be like the over/under in Vegas is 7. Some places it's 7.5. It sounds about right. And if they go 7-5. I've never seen Gator fans happy with 7-5 in the history of man. They never have. But they may just kind of say, "Hey, tough schedule. Now we know what we got. Let's go from here." We'll see. So it's going to be interesting.
But Pat, are you going to be worried? We know AR-15 is going to be the starter, but with Jack Miller coming in from Ohio State, and I'm kind of worried about AR-15's durability. I mean, he is injury prone. What do you see at that position? Do we think that Jack Miller III could be a starter because of the injury proneness of AR-15?
Well, he has had a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
And hopefully he gets in better shape. Hopefully he's matured a little bit. Hopefully he's not driving 105 miles an hour. But my thing about Anthony Richardson, and people I think sometimes take me the wrong way on this, is I have no idea whether Anthony Richardson is going to be any good or not. Is he a great athlete? Absolutely. There's no question about it. I've seen a lot of great athletes that weren't great quarterbacks. I have no idea if he's going to be a great quarterback. The sample size is not that big. It's a couple of great runs against FAU and USF and one great game against a terrible defense at LSU. And then you played a great defense and you basically cost Florida the game. That's the sample size, and I just don't, I need to see more before I can sit here and declare Anthony Richardson as the guy that's going to, when I see him in the first round mock drafts, I go, you got to do something first.
Correct.
And so, I think Miller was kind of a guy they needed to get a backup because they kind of knew that Emory Jones, if he wasn't going to win the job, was going to go. And in fact, Emory Jones went to 2 practices and went, "Oh, Richardson's really gone way past me. Adios." So that's the problem. And Miller doesn't have a lot of experience. He didn't show me a lot in the spring game, but again, he was with the second team. So, they don't have – that's the biggest thing. They could be pretty good players, and if they don't have receivers, it's not going to matter. And that's where I want to see Florida, what they were able to do and what Napier is able to do. But Richardson, to me, is a big wild card in this football season. Totally.
People listening, this was Pat Dooley. You can find him on Twitter. It's Pat_Dooley. And you can also check him out on the Tailgate, WRUF, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6, and also on YouTube at also another duly noted podcast. Pat, thanks so much for doing this. It's a real true honor to meet you virtually because I listen to you every day. And I think I'm going to start calling in and talk some Gator sports with you. I think it's worth it.
Oh, well, we love our callers, even the cattlemen, so although after yesterday when he said the single dumbest thing I've ever heard, which is hard for him to do, that with Tennessee not in the College World Series, the fans weren't going to show up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Have you ever been there?
He's
Jeez.
always got something to say about Tennessee football and Tennessee being better
He
than
does.
Florida and everything. He's quite a character. We'll say that.
And Lane Kiffin. He's got to bring him up in every show.
All right, pal. I appreciate your time and thanks so much for coming on the program.
right.
Appreciate it.